one of the things I'm seeing on our screen in front of us, you're looking to, along with one of our previous guests, Sean Kelly, looking to start the start a JROTC program here. Explain to us a little bit about what you're thinking about doing with that.
So what I've done, we just completed year 3 of the program,
Okay.
and so that it was a brainchild, if you will, of Colonel McNeely and Mr. Sy, our previous chair, to bring that in as a summer program with the Air Force Junior ROTC. And essentially what they do is they give us 8 weeks to take anywhere from 10 to 14, mostly high school students. There are a few that are in the college ROTC programs to go mostly, for the most part, from 0 hours to private pilot in 8 weeks, which is a tall order. And what I've done these last 3 years is essentially oversee the flight training. We're, of course, using our syllabus, but overseeing the scheduling, conduct of the training, progress, and keeping Colonel up to date, keeping the Air Force up to date there. And so that's really what I've been doing. And we've got, we signed a contract, and I believe we've got 2 more summers of that before that were to end. If we
signed on for longer.
if we weren't to renew it.
Yes, sir.
So you're just basically an overseer of flight operations.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm overseeing that program out there.
I know that's a big thing for us over the summer is the ROTC program, because for a while students wouldn't really stay over the summer, so we had a lot of flight instructors sitting around, not really being able to make
Twiddling
money,
their thumbs, yeah.
And
not
that
being
was
able to build
a lot
hours.
of the thought behind that was instructors weren't really having much reason to stay over the summer, so they're either having to take out a second job somewhere else,
Yes, sir.
or they go back possibly home, or to
Start instructing at another school.
Right. And so that's been a great way of, I guess to put it simply, to keep the instructors busy over the summer.
Retain them.
Support them.
Exactly. To support them, it benefits, everyone. Now it's a lot of work. It's a
Okay.
tall order to do lesson 1 to lesson 58 in 8 weeks. Because you need a lot of things to work with you. And each summer we've had, whether it's weather, maintenance issues, scheduling issues, where it becomes even more tricky.
Well, even the math doesn't line up. I mean, you got 7 days in a week, and they're here for 8 weeks. That's only 56 lessons a day. Or if you do a lesson a day, that's only 56. So,
Which
And
doing a lesson a day
and you
is-
have to take a day off. Sorry to cut you
Yeah.
off, but
Oh,
you have to
Sundays,
you got to take the day off.
typically.
You can only do 6 days in a row. So now we've even cut it down.
so they're really having to haul tail.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed over the summer when I was working at the airport, every student was up there. I think they were doing double lessons on the grounds.
What we've found to work is you have morning flight slot, lunch, ground school class, afternoon flight
Yeah,
slot.
you taught the ground school class, I believe.
And I taught the ground school class. And this summer was the first time that we had the ground school class out at the airport.
Yes, sir.
Logistically, it made it a lot easier because we cut out the having to go back and forth between campus.
Yeah, everyone's just at the
time,
airport.
basically the only time the cadet went to campus was to get their certificate.
Yes, sir.
After that, it was either the hotel or the airport. Now that doesn't sound like the most fun, thing.
You're basically
but
getting a private pilot certificate
exactly.
paid for. You're getting your meals paid for, housing paid for.
Staying in a nice hotel.
You
Oh,
don't have to
very
pay-
nice. I
you
got
don't
to
have
see
pay
it.
for
It was pretty
fuel.
nice.
It is really nice. And so that helped out a ton.
Yes, sir.
And the other thing is it helped me out. Now it added a workload now from overseeing the just purely flight training aspect of it to now teaching the ground school class. But it helped me out, honestly, keep a little bit easier eye on where are they progressing. Because I already saw it this morning and you're only on this lesson. So here we are in ground school. Maybe I need to kind of pull back, from what I originally had planned to let's review this a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And honestly, I feel that by having the ground school right out there, the less travel back and forth, I think it helped them out on their stage check pass rates.
Yes,
as well.
sir.
So I think that was a pretty successful move.
Well, it's easier to keep focus going straight there. There's no breaks
It
where
wasn't that kind of back and forth. Because another thing too is just like a normal Del State student, you might have the 7 to 9 slot, but you don't have anything to do from 9 to 11, 11 to 1, and then so I go back to the hotel and I don't do anything, and then I go to campus from 1 to 3, and then back out to the airport. There's a lot of downtime in between.
Yes,
Whereas, sure, you might have that downtime from 9 to 11, 11 to 1 ish, but then you're right back at the airport, and you're at the airport from 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 or whatever. And
Yes,
so
sir.
that kind of helps a little bit easier time of keeping an eye on high school seniors and juniors.
Yeah.
So,
That's also one thing I was thinking about. How bad was the fatigue, especially towards the end of things, of just constantly basically pounding it into their heads, learn.
There's
At
that.
one point, you would just get exhausted.
There's that.
burnout is that is an issue that we run into just about every year. That is if there is a particular con, in my opinion, of the program, is it's burnout for the students, of course,
Yes, sir.
because another thing that people don't necessarily realize, I think, sometimes is a lot of these students, they're not from Mississippi. They're not really from the South. A lot of
We
them,
had a nationwide.
students from New Jersey, California, even Georgia, which is not too terribly far, but to go from Atlanta to small town Delta, Mississippi,
Middle of nowhere.
that's a shock in itself. Florida, places like that. I think Illinois, we've had a student before. So to go far away from home for a lot of these cadets, the first time ever, really.
Yes, sir.
We put that on you. You're not really getting a lot of time to talk to your parents, not a lot of time to talk to your family. Oh, and by the way, here's basically the entirety of the FARAM you need to learn in 8 weeks to get your private certificate. That's tough, and I got to give a lot of credit to the cadets and the dedication they have to do it, because I'm sure there were probably plenty of times they didn't want to see me that day for 2 hours, and there were probably some days that I didn't really feel like dealing with it either.
Yes,
But
sir.
for them to stick it out like they do, that's a credit to them.
One thing that was nice is, you said it ranges from high school JROTC to university ROTC, and one of our students this past summer, I believe, was a senior in high school from Colorado, if I remember correctly. And she kind of took along the mentor role.
She was actually at one of the Colorado universities. I want to say Colorado State.
I think so.
She really took on a leadership role,
Yes.
and that's, I think, a little bit of to put myself in the Air Force's shoes if I had to take a wild guess. I think that is a little bit of the thought process is we've usually, I think this past summer we had 16 close to it, which is the most we've ever had. 13 of those were high school junior seniors, and then 3 of them were in college.
Yes, sir.
And without necessarily making them do it, they were kind of seeing, are they going to take on that leadership role this year?
I think they really
our
did.
student from Colorado State, she did a fantastic job. She was the top student in the class.
That's awesome to hear.
And so she made it tough because every test she turned in was 100. Like, man, am I not making this hard enough? And so last summer we had a cadet from the Air Force Academy, and he just
Oh, really?
graduated this past spring, if I remember correctly. And he really took on the leadership role very well. And so, and we've had a cadet from the Air Force Academy each summer, and each time they've been great leaders. But him last year was one that sticks out to me, and
Yes, sir.
the student from Colorado State. So.
Well, we were doing our research on you, and one thing that really caught me by surprise that I never knew, you fly a King Air for a company, kind of a corporate / charter operation on the side. Never really thought about it. I thought you were just one of our full-time employees.
It feels like it sometimes that I never leave, but there are times I actually do get out and about. That is, I call it my little side gig or my quote-unquote fun side job, which I have a lot of fun at this job, if you can't tell when you see me at the airport. But that's been a great opportunity to get real-world experience. It's been great for me as an instructor, because there's one thing to teach it out of the book, and this is what the FAA wants out of you, and what they how they've set up the system. But it's another thing, not necessarily saying that the system doesn't operate the way the FAA wants to, but it's another thing to kind of get that real world experience of an instrument teaching an arrival, and you've never done one, to now you're shooting an arrival into Dallas or Houston or down into South Florida, where the whole coastline is just dotted with Delta and Charlie airports.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you really kind of see how it shapes up, and so that's been a wonderful experience. I've got to go to some really cool places, and with corporate flying, you also go to some middle of nowhere places. You go to little small mountain towns in Tennessee. One place was Parkersburg, West Virginia.
I've never heard of that place.
Well,
Oh,
neither
exactly.
until getting ready for the flight there. And if you can just picture any 1970s West Virginia coal mining town, it looks exactly like that when we were flying over.
Yes, sir.
It was right on that kind of West Virginia, Ohio border. There's a river. This might even be the Ohio River. Places like that, but I've also gotten to fly to Dallas, Houston, Tulsa, Oklahoma was actually a really cool experience, because we landed, we had some time to kill, but we're just hanging out at the airport. It's part of being a corporate pilot. For a lot of the case is you don't necessarily want to branch out too far, because if your customers, your passengers call up and say, hey, we're at the airport and we're ready, and you're not there,
Ooh.
they're
You're in
having to wait
trouble.
on you, and that's not good. So a lot of times you are just kind of hanging out at the airport. In Tulsa, though, I got to watch F-16s,
Really?
and I believe it was a E-5, one of the big ones, doing pattern work and practice. So that was a
Really?
cool thing, getting to sit there and watch that. God, they're god awful loud. So there was no
Those things
there was no taking a nap. So,
Those things are loud.
And
They
so-
are old and loud.
but flying down to Boca Raton, Florida, flying down to New Orleans, some really cool places. The furthest north I've flown is Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Yes, sir.
That's a really cool area
Yeah.
up there. So some really cool experiences doing that. Corporate's also a place where you find out, I think, whether or not you really want to do that or just go to the airlines. Because corporate, it does have some great things. That kind of Part 91 ops, it's just you and your customers, so you usually get to know them pretty well,
Yes, sir.
because they're consistent.
Yes, sir.
Of it's always them. But you get those flights where, boy, you're just sitting there for hours on end doing nothing, waiting on them to get back, and it can wear you out. A few years ago, the Alabama LSU game in Tuscaloosa, back
Yes,
when
sir.
both teams were like number 1 and number 2 in the country.
Mm-hmm.
President Trump came down to the game, and everybody was already going to the game to begin with. Well, then now the president's coming in. So now they have to really amp up who can get into the Tuscaloosa airport, who can't.
Oh, I bet that was
And
a
it filled
nightmare.
up quick. We were 5 minutes from shutting the door and cranking up when, credit to that FBO guy, because he certainly didn't have to. He ran out to stop us and let us know that the Tuscaloosa airport just shut down. So we had to
really?
figure out somewhere else to go.
Yes, sir.
So we flew to the Golden Triangle Airport right outside Columbus. So for me that was cool, because it was going to my old stomping
Flying
grounds.
home.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an hour drive from, about an hour and a half really, from that airport to the stadium if there's no traffic whatsoever.
Which
Well, now
there
throw in the
was,
entirety
yeah.
of America, what felt like going there. So we got there early in the morning, and we did not leave until midnight.
Oh.
Wow.
And so you're just kind of sitting there, and you're just, you've charged up your iPad 3 times now because you keep wearing out the battery trying to find,
Just keep
Any-
yourself
insert
entertained.
something, right?
Uh,
And that's one of those you can kind of see, like, well, maybe corporate's not for me. Maybe
Yes, sir.
maybe it's the airlines. Maybe it's charter, which is not near as much.
Mm.
it's kind of a taste of both sides.
It is, and so I've enjoyed that. It's been a great experience then.
Yeah. Did you at least get to enjoy the football game, or were you just kind of stuck there?
We watched it in the airport pilots
Oh.
lounge, and it was myself, the chief pilot, and there was about 5 or 6 other pilots doing the exact same thing we did. They were planning on flying into Tuscaloosa, and
And
the
just
airport
stuck
shut
there.
down, so they either diverted or had to replan. we got there early enough that we actually were seeing basically, for flight and the flight tracker apps, all the little arrows that were working away, and then
Just
all of a
over,
sudden going around to Birmingham, Bessemer, Columbus, and all that
Yes, sir.
to make it work.
So are you acting as PIC in the King Air?
I am SIC.
SIC, okay.
And so the King Air 350 actually, it's one of those cases to where an SIC is technically not required. It's a single pilot certified plane. Now insurance necessarily is not going to hear
Be
that.
happy.
They want to have two
I want
pilots
redundancy.
up there, and so for PIC requirements and things like that, no, I don't have to be there, but an SIC either. But insurance, they want you there, and so
Yes, sir.
a lot of pilots too will use that, especially if they get on, which a lot of your corporate pilots are going to have their instructor certificate, probably their MEI. So part of maybe their payment is they're getting log dual received.
Yes, sir.
So I've probably gotten, I've flown, I've been right seating that King Air for a little over 3 years now. Don't
Really?
do a lot of trips, about a couple trips a month.
Okay.
And I've got probably a little over 120 hours.
Hey, extra
and
change is
and-
extra
and
change.
it's extra change, and nothing wrong with getting to have 100 hours of King Air time to,
Boost that logbook up.
right, to help that out. So.
And then it's a good resume builder.
Mhm.
It's
So,
kind of a personal question. As being an AHP, you think it'd be possible to maybe get a pre-flight tour of that King Air for AHP one day?
Possibly, could make that happen.
Where's it based out of?
It's down in Jackson.
Okay.
So the probably the more difficult part would be organizing that.
Either getting it here or driving to Jackson.
Yeah, driving down to Jackson. So that would probably be the more statistical, logistical
Issue.
issue
Okay.
there. It's just organizing, getting down there, part of it.
I was gonna ask, since the King Air can be configured into basically a very small regional airliner, how is it flying something like that into these middle of nowhere airports? Because I know it's it's pretty good with short field, and it's pretty quick when it comes to that sort of size of aircraft. How is it flying something like that?
The controls, first off, are heavy.
Really?
It's a workout to land it, to get it off the ground. It's a workout. It can be a beast of a plane, especially in engine out situations. Now, not that I've experienced that live, but part of when you do that sort of thing in multi-engine turbine is you got to do annual recurrent training, and so I go up to a flight school basically in North Carolina and hop in a sim. And just get put through the ringer on what are you going to do if the pilot is incapacitated and you've got to take over kind of situations. But we also get to have fun and do the V1 cuts. This past time around, I got to take off into a wind shear
Ooh.
Nice.
and a microburst. So
Did you keep it in the air?
I kept it in the air.
Yeah, there you go.
Kept it flying, and so now I was sweating bullets after that.
Oh,
'Cause,
I
I mean,
bet.
it's just the sim, but I mean, you're getting thrown around in there, and so, but it's a lot of fun. Heavier on the controls though. The avionics, it's a Rockwell Collins Proline Fusion touchscreen, all glass, fantastic
Ooh, sounds
equipment.
nice.
But it's also one of those things that you can get yourself in trouble real quick if you don't know how to work it.
Put trash in, get trash out.
Right,
Kind of.
exactly. You're talking about the performance of it. For pilots, it's probably that happy medium between
A rocket and a sled.
exactly. You get that short field performance to where you can get into little. For a lot of King Airs, you can get in little 3,000 foot strips, and then also be perfectly capable to get into the Dallases of the world. Now, for air traffic control, King Airs aren't their favorite because you're that unfortunate right there in the middle. You're fast enough and big enough that they should put you on arrival, but you're slow enough that you're probably going to get in the way of
Everything
Your
faster.
jets.
of the jets
Yeah.
behind you. So there's been times, especially going into Houston, where they like to put us on an arrival coming from the Beaumont VOR, basically skirting the coast,
Yes, sir.
where I've even heard ATC, call up and they go, you know what, just forget it, fly this heading. You're starting out on arrival, but you're just not quite going fast enough that they just say, forget about it, and put you on heading and just vector you, which for us is easy. It's like, all right, great. So for pilots, it's great. For air traffic control, I think sometimes probably the King Air is not their favorite.
Can definitely say from someone that, or I've been spotting at Orlando Executive, you'll see the wheels up King Airs, the 350Is, and you'll see, you can see it on radar, but you also see like 5 other like Citations or Learjets, and it's like, well, he just got pushed back. Oh, and he got pushed back again. Oh, he's finally coming in. Then he rushes off that runway because he's got another jet behind him.
He got the jets in slow flight behind him.
I'm fortunate enough at the executive airport there. There's a park there that has the ATC. It's fun listening to them talk to these King Airs, like, get off the runway. You have these
Speed
fast
up.
things coming in, move off the runway. And it's like, I feel bad for the guys. It's like, I just want to land. I want to taxi to the FBO and be done with my day. And you're being yelled at by the ATC at executive, and it's like, I understand your pain.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, kind of touching on the future and things at Delta State, you brought a lot of stuff for us to kind of fill up the table.
Good, I tried.
Can you kind of talk us through some stuff, maybe starting at the front?
Okay, all right. So at the front, I've got my little model of the commuter CRJ 900. Got that as kind of the, hey, you're about to be an employee here. And then it's a nice little reminder, too. Also how close, and from this side of it, we talked about earlier, one of the wings is broken off. One of the engine popping off is new to me, but I knew the wing breaking off, I knew that was there. The engine not being there, I'm going to have to get home and have a conversation with somebody. But
that 2-year-old, huh?
It was sitting on a shelf in my little office in our home. Well, we were having to move some things around because my office, slowly but surely, is becoming just as much a playroom. And so as we were moving things around, my 2 little girls, they're 4 and 2, they got a hold of it, and they weren't, running around with it, but I think they set it somewhere, and in the process of moving it, it got knocked to the floor.
Oh,
and I don't know where the other wing is now. I've got super glue. I just got to actually find it. And so I'm sure that's probably a maintenance squawk at some airline. We've got the wing, we just don't have the glue. And it's a nice little reminder because it's kind of one of those like what was and kind of the
what could have been.
Yeah,
exactly.
but not necessarily like oh man, what could have been, but almost kind of a laugh of I'm glad I'm at where I am now with that kind of wing missing because it reminds me of my daughters now.
Yes, sir.
And then also I've got some of my little 2 of my little desk knickknacks that I've got at my airport office. My little things that I enjoy outside of aviation, I'm definitely probably a little bit on the nerdy side of things. So
I've seen the office. You got the
Star
lightsabers
Star Wars,
and
got my
everything.
lightsaber.
I can respect that.
Got some soccer scarves. I enjoy soccer.
Arsenal, huh?
Arsenal, big Arsenal fan. Hopefully they're going to have a good year this year. It's starting out good. They broke my heart last year, though. But I've got little Conan the Barbarian. Was it Funko Pop?
Yes, sir.
Got that. John at the airport, he's got the 3D printers. He printed me off of Yoda. Of course, I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Oh, yeah.
And then up there at the front as well is a bar book and a cocktail shaker, which I know for pilots is kind of one of those like, you're not supposed to be drinking. Which I promise it's empty. There's nothing in there.
You got my hopes up when you showed up. I was like, hey.
I was thinking.
And then you told me, it's
I was
empty.
like, this is an alcohol-free campus now. But my senior year, prior to instructing, part of that just gauntlet and gamut, whatever, of different little jobs I had that had nothing to do with aviation prior to being a flight instructor.
Janitor,
waiter, was an orientation leader here at Delta State, and then bartender.
There you go.
And so I guess just a real quick side, filling out that application to be a flight instructor, and it's asking you like list your jobs prior to. It's like, well, here I am, like,
Jack of all trades.
The FAA's ears perk up. Oh, well.
But,
alcohol.
Yeah.
I bartended at a restaurant here in town. Great little way to make money. It's a fun job. Now it can be a job that's not fun at all when you got all the Friday night drunks.
Especially in a college town.
But it's a massive bar.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of bar that it's a huge bar, but the restaurant's not necessarily one that points you to having all these crazy cocktails, but there was the liquors and liqueurs available to make it. And so there would be a lot of downtime where, we're trying to figure out something to make for the drink specials for the night. And so mixology, mixology became something I really started to enjoy because I could experiment and kind of find out what worked. I used to have a little notebook of all the different recipes I came up with. And I tried to keep everybody off the scent. I had it labeled something silly like Marshall's Tax Returns 2014. So that way no one would look at it, and it's lost now. So if anybody finds it, give it back to me.
If you find Marshall's Tax Returns from 2014, we need that.
Maybe open it, copy some stuff, then give it to you.
That's right. But I just really got into it, and it got to be something I enjoy. I enjoy the kind of the thought behind it, beyond just the straight up Jack and Coke kind of thing. Now, obviously, you got to be 21 to do all that sort of stuff. And
22.
22, and the FA is 8 hours, and use the common sense, and let's try and keep it at 12 hours. But I really got to where I enjoyed doing that sort of thing. It's something I like to do one of my little hobbies. Outside of work, if I know I don't have, anything to do the rest of the day, is go home and make a cool little drink out of that book. And so that's something pretty cool. And then my other little guy up there is something that's a relatively new hobby, is Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Really got into that. I am the dungeon master for both of my groups. I've got a group of friends from college, and a couple of the instructors at the airport, a few actually, several. So get to play with them, and so I've got just all kinds of minis in my little home office, which I'm having to keep up on a high shelf because I don't want the girls to get hold of them.
Yeah.
Those instructors are.
And I like to paint them as well, and so those are kind of some things that I like outside of work. What else is up here on the desk? The UAA conference, kind of a look through. Yeah, look through that. This past summer, spent a week in Knoxville, Tennessee, picking up those new Cirrus that we got.
That's right.
Mr. G and I spent a week up there to get trained up.
Amazing new Cirruses.
Absolute blast to fly.
Beautiful eye candy.
And they look great.
They're great
too.
to fly in the back of too.
At the very least, they look cool.
Yes,
I
they
remember.
do.
Well, I remember having to hand wax or ceramic coat those things within a week of them getting there, and that's a task and a half because you got to wash with the microfiber towel. You can't use the big brush, and every little spot has to be. You can run your finger along it. You can feel right where you missed because there's more friction.
That week we were up there, though, we had time we had to kill. There's time we had, because there were our planes by that point. We had done the acceptance flight where you basically go up for 30 minutes, essentially do a lap in the pattern, make sure the plane works as it should.
Yes, sir.
And then you sign off, and by that point it's your plane. Now, for insurance purposes, though, they don't want you to necessarily just take it home.
Yes, sir.
So we spent, the rest of the week up there training up, but we also needed to put time on the planes to,
break them in.
break
really.
them in, essentially. And so we put a lot of hours in. We put, I think, 15 hours in basically 3 days because we flew back that Friday.
Yes, sir.
We flew to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
We got to go to the first flight, landed at that airport.
That's right. I remember seeing all the pictures.
That is probably up there on coolest experiences in my aviation career for sure. Was landing in that little strip, because once you make it to the end of the runway, you can look and actually see the strip where the Wright brothers actually.
Really?
It's the beach, right?
Right there on it, and this is huge hill with a monument on it now. And we got to get out, and we got to walk around, explore, and check that out. We flew down the North Carolina coast, and basically, it basically turned out to be turns around a point over this big lighthouse, and flew back. And we got to land on a hilltop airport, kind of in that Appalachian mountain range in North Carolina. One day we flew into Kentucky, and got to see that kind of part of things. Another day we did some mountain flying through Tennessee and North Carolina. So
I think you did a whole
Just
tour
building
of the
time on it.
central.
building time, and now
East
in between,
Coast.
during the time, we would sit there because we were VFR, so weren't too strict on altitude. We would let center know, hey, we're going to do some maneuvers real quick. So along the way, we'd do steep turns and
Well,
stuff
you
like
guys
all
had-
the standard stuff.
Well,
but
you guys had to learn them so you could teach our instructors and break them and learn everything about them, the nuances, how they
Right.
would handle and everything.
So part of a lot of that time building was the distance, and then also in between, we're sitting there doing the maneuvers
Having a little fun.
as well, and kind of figuring out, all right, this is how they have it done. Is this how we want to do it? How do we want to build up our maneuvers guide? Do we just want to, for now, just use the Cirrus standard? Do we want to kind of maybe tweak it a little bit to fit us a little bit more?
Yes, sir.
And of course, the big one is running through that caps, running through
Understanding that.
that parachute unit. So, and kind of figuring out when and where that needs to be.
What does CAP
used.
stand for?
That is
Control.
Cirrus Airframe Parachute System.
Okay.
And so it's a parachute for the whole of the airplane.
Yes, sir. We just like to break down the acronyms for the listeners.
Oh, yeah.
And it's what the Cirrus. It's one of the main things. Is what the Cirrus is known for.
Yes,
Is
it's-
the parachute system.
That's their calling card.
Yeah. But I remember you were talking about the flights, and then it was funny because it was such a big event for the Cirruses to come in, and we already had the tail numbers, I think, at that point. So me and the other line service, if we were trying to kill time and had nothing going on, we were caught up on work, we'd sit here, we'd put the tail number in and see where you guys were flying. Like, come on, start heading back towards Cleveland. Come
Right.
on. Want to see? And then the one day you guys flew in, I wasn't in town for the week.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh,
that
that
was-
was
The one day.
that was the fun because we got to do a little flyover, and so I've got to pick on my wife real quick because she kind of surprised me a little bit. She and the girls were there,
Really?
and they were there to greet me, and I thought they might be,
Yes, sir.
but she had the girls dressed up in little red, white, and blue outfits. I don't think on purpose, but I was like, here I am coming back, and they're acting like I'm some war hero. When I've just spent the last week, flying around, breaking in this new place.
Yeah. No, that was a big thing for those to come in.
I guess the other things up here, the Captain Cessna Award. We talked about the Eagle Award earlier. The Captain Cessna Award is basically the award for. I think they've now got it to where you've got Captain
What's
Cessna and Flight Instructor of the Year.
You've got Captain Cessna, the award for the most flight instruction provided in 2019.
Right. So 2019, that's when I was trying to book it to build up that time for the airlines.
Yes.
And then right there at the end is the Staff Employee of the Month for July of 2022.
Really?
I'm particularly proud of that award for two big reasons. For, I guess, personal self reasons, whatever. I'm one of the first staff employees at the airport to get that award in quite some time.
Yes,
So
sir.
that was pretty cool to see somebody from Flight Ops get that for the first time. The other big reason is the university doesn't just pick it. You have to be nominated by
Yes, sir.
your peers. And
Really?
typically for that to happen, it has to be just more than one nominee.
Okay.
And so that meant a lot to me because that meant that it wasn't just one person.
It was a
I know I
lot.
can always count on Miss Margot, but that meant that a couple people up there I must have been doing something pretty well,
Yes,
and
sir.
so that was very special to me to get that one.
Yeah, and that's for the whole university.
And
That's against the
oh,
whole.
I got to be on the billboard for a whole month. So.
Yeah, you were against the whole university for that, and you got
Mhm.
nominated.
So-
That's or selected, not just nominated. That's
And
awesome.
so that was a really cool. That was very special. And then I've got my pictures of my girls and my family. So,
Nice. Nice little family you got
mhm.
there.
so
You planning on any more kids or?
not right now. At least we've got our two, and we're sticking with that at 4 and 2.
That's a handful.
You can hit 6'4" too.
We've had that light discussion, but right now, no. Unless there's something I don't know about. But no, right now it's just the 4 of us. Possibly a 5th one day, but we'll see.
Yes, sir.
So. Not saying no, just maybe not right now.
Yeah.
So we've gone through everything. What are your plans future-wise? Are you plan on staying here?
Ideally, I would like to.
And-
I would like to stay here long term. Definitely one of those. The whole company man, idea or whatever. But I do plan on staying here long term. It's one of those things that even when my wife and I were talking about going to the airlines, the honest end goal, really towards the end, was to eventually come back to Delta State, and that was part of the idea to stay. Was, well, why do we have to go off just to come back when we could just stay here?
Yes, sir.
So long term, I do want to stay here, and I want to grow into higher positions.
Yes, sir.
And I think the opportunity is there to do that. Over the long run. That state retirement helps too.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been looking at is go off, do my own thing, and then slowly kind of make my way back to support the university that's given me so much.
And that's how I think I can do that best, is staying here.
Yes, sir.
Is to I've got nothing but love for the university, obviously, because I've never left. Sure, there are days where it's not the most fun job in the world. There are days where, and that's any job. Any job's gonna have its quirks. But I tell people, especially when students come in and they kind of want to ask, because it is a topic that I get a lot of. Why haven't you gone off to the airlines? I get to take my daughters to school. I get to fly an airplane, and I'm home by 5.
You get to have that family life
And
that
so,
a lot of pilots miss
it's-
out
At
on.
such a young age, that's really important.
It's just as close to being able to have your cake and eat it too as you can get. So I'm kind of, in my opinion,
Sounds like the mosquito plane.
I know.
There are punchers up there.
Must be, man. Maybe I'm gonna have to worry about mosquitoes at the house when I get home. So that's my viewpoint of it.
Yeah, I understand that completely. That's one thing I've been kind of fighting with. I want a family of myself one day, family for myself one day, and it's kind of you got to pick and choose your battles. Before we get to our last question we've been doing for our interviews, I did have one question because you do the flight slots. That's one of your many jobs, of course.
Unfortunately.
You get to go through and
Pick and choose.
pick and choose. You get to go through and assign people the slots.
Right.
And it's obviously something you earn. You don't just come in getting it. Do you have any advice for students maybe coming in that are wanting a flight slot, or what can you kind of tell us about the flight slots?
Okay. For the brand new students, especially those private students, they probably aren't my biggest fans right now because they're waiting. Positive news though is I actually today I was able to start assigning private students flight slots.
Really?
So
That's awesome.
so there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it doesn't look like it's a train. So that is the positive for those students that they're chomping at the bit as we're getting there.
Yes, sir.
When I'm going through to look at assigning flight slots, one of the first things I want to check for is A, what are we working on?
Yes, sir.
Are we right there at the end? And not necessarily one of those where then you automatically have to get priority. But,
Yes, sir.
If we're right there at the end getting ready to start CFI or getting ready to finish CFI, we need to get you done. Number one, maybe so that way we can get you in a green shirt. And
That's
we can
another
get you on the other
instructor.
side. Right. Number two is availability. What have we got to work with? If all you've given me is 7 to 9 or 3 to 5, hey, that's the most 2 popular times in the whole flight training. Not saying that's an automatic no, but that can make it tough.
It's going to be harder. One thing I do for
Especially
my
when I go through and check real quick. Especially when I go through and check then is looking for GPA.
Yes, sir.
Looking for GPA, where are we at on flight training, and then instructor pairing as
Yes, sir.
well. Because not every student works
Well, with their instructors.
well with their instructors.
I was very fortunate to get along with both my instructors now. My first one especially. We'd be up there on our the 2 night flights required for a private pilot. Well, it's 3 including the cross country, the long one. But we're up there quoting Talladega Nights for 2 hours, hour and a half. And it's just sometimes you have that mesh, but then sometimes you don't, of course.
I try to find that mesh for the student. I try, sometimes the student doesn't quite get the instructor that they originally wanted, and sometimes the instructor doesn't get the student
Yes, sir.
they wanted. I do take that into account.
Yes, sir.
If you specifically request, I'll make a note of it. Now, it's not necessarily just because you ask, so that doesn't mean that you get it.
Yes, sir.
But it kind of tells me, okay, they've worked well together before, or at least from the student or instructor's perspective, they
No
work
need
well
to really
together.
change it.
Maybe I don't necessarily need to change. But one thing I do also look to do, though, is it is good to get a different perspective.
Okay.
And so I do eventually, you might start out with this instructor for private and instrument, or, starting out on instrument. I would eventually like to see you with a different instructor so you can get a different perspective, provided that the pairing works. And by that point, if you've been here long enough, I've got a little bit better gauge on
Your personality.
your personality and who you're going to work well with and who you're not going to work well
Yes, sir.
with. That's part of the FOI too, is kind of sometimes personalities don't work. That's nobody's fault. You just don't work out with
Yeah.
each other.
Well, I think some airlines have like lists where
Mm-hmm.
once you fly with a captain or a first officer, it's like, well, I don't work well with this person. I'm going to put them on
Mm-hmm.
this list where I'm not going to fly with them again.
And so that's another area where I look as well. But for the newer students or students that are trying to get a flight slot, if you can give me time and you can demonstrate that you do qualify for a flight slot, if you can give me availability, that can help out a ton.
Yeah.
Another thing too that does help out, and I'm probably sounding like Colonel, is the willingness to fly on weekends.
Oh, yeah.
It's
We
not an
can-
automatic put you at the bottom, but if I see the student that says, hey, I'm not flying on weekends for whatever reason, I have to take that into account on, all right, do I give this person the slot when I know this student right here is willing to fly on the weekends and they've only got maybe a few lessons left before they're ready to move on to the next thing. I've got to keep that in mind.
Yes, sir.
There is a little something to it. And honestly, what helps out the most is don't wait to the last minute to turn in the flight slot.
I think I turned my fall this semester's availability in the spring,
Mhm.
even though I had the summer too. But
Um,
what I like to do for my availability times is I'll just mark off my classes. I'd rather
Mhm.
work my meals and my job around the flight
Mhm.
slot rather than try and move the flight slot that I'm not guaranteed
mhm.
around meals and work and classes and
Mhm.
everything else. Flight slot here is really going to become number one
Mhm.
because the only thing set in stone at that point is classes.
And the thing too is only mark off your classes, and if you do have a work, mark it off, but do put a note on there, work. And really it helps me out too if you can tell me, without giving out too much information to me, but what work it is. Is it a job that will work with you? Because that can help me out too. Or is it a job that is stringent? No, I cannot do anything other than this time.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
cool, I know that, so I know not to even try and bother fitting you in at that time. Or it lets me know maybe I don't need to try and put you in the slot that's right before when you're supposed to go and clock in, because now I've got you running late, or we're now in a
It's
situation
just going to cause a
where-
lot of issues
Yeah.
with flying
We don't
and
need
work.
We don't
So
need
the-
butting heads.
The more information you can give me besides just Xing out that time frame, the better.
Yeah.
Then part of that is turning in your student detail schedule. But like I said, don't wait to the last minute,
Yes, sir.
because when it's the 2 days before the back to semester meeting, when everybody's going to find out their flight slot, and I've only got 20 students that have turned in flight slot information, and I know there's 140 plus in the program, I know what I'm about to be doing for the next 48 hours is getting a flood of emails trying to put something together.
Yes,
you
sir.
know, and so the sooner you can get it to me, the better. And always, it's just me. I do slip up here and there. Check in with me. If I've not given you the confirmation email or received thank you, guided thanks, whatever the Microsoft Outlook
Automation stuff.
automated stuff is, if I've not said that back to you, don't assume that I've got it and I've already got you now. Check in with me, remind me. And that also shows me something too,
That you care.
that
Yeah.
you've got that gumption to come in and check in.
Yeah.
And so that can't be the whole story. That's just because you want it. That doesn't mean you get it, but it does.
It helps. It
helps me
shows.
out. It keeps me a little bit more beyond just the out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
So,
One thing I like to do, I think I emailed you twice and I gave you a physical copy
Mhm.
for the fall
oh, yeah.
and the summer.
I know sometimes you might come out to the airport and I look like I'm flustered with you because you're pestering me. And at the moment I am, but I would much rather you pester me about getting a flight slot or insert whatever thing you need help with than sitting idly by and then here we are months later and you're frustrated because something hasn't gotten done.
Yes,
I
sir.
was like, oh, well, gosh, if we could have talked about this a little bit more,
Yeah.
we can
And-
understand the situation a little better.
And I understand, we're trying to do a GPA based for
Mhm.
flight slots, but you guys are also really willing to work with students that show work ethic, and
Mhm.
they may not have the GPA currently, but
Mhm.
they're like I transferred in. I didn't have the best GPA. I left LA Tech because of my GPA and not
Mhm.
getting a flight slot there. I came here. I worked with you guys. I think I was at like a 2.7 at the time, and right now I think we're giving flight slots to. We can't get flight slots to 3.6s.
Mhm.
But if you show the work ethic and you're showing you're working harder in maybe aviation specific classes, you're not
Mhm.
doing so well in general education or
Mhm.
electives, but you're nailing the classes that really matter. You guys are really willing to work with people.
That it can certainly help out a ton.
Yeah.
It really does. It helps. And honestly, the more social learning you can do, the better. Coming out here and working line service,
Yes.
coming out here just to check in on things, get some information and things like that, things to take home with you. Don't feel like you only have to be up there for your assigned flight slot and
Show
then
you
go
care.
home. Right. Not just that, but it helps out a ton
Yes, sir.
when you're up there more than just the 2-hour block a day.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, kind of wrapping it up. I'm going to ask the question that I ask everyone. Favorite aircraft and why?
Favorite aircraft and why? Okay, so I guess I'll give you two parts. The straight up, no matter what, it's the A-10 Warthog.
Okay,
I can
understandable.
understand that.
But aircraft that I've specifically flown, it's got to be that King Air.
I understand
That's
that.
a cool plane
Yeah.
to fly. Number two is the Cirrus, and maybe there's a little recency bias there. Now, if you want specific tail number,
It's got to be 8.9 Rescue Ranger.
yeah,
Rescue Ranger.
8.9.
Poor 8.9 was the only one with all the hours on it and broken in. And if someone had to go get picked up from the airport, like we had the 206, they had an issue with the altimeter getting inspected. So G had to get in 8.9 because it was the one with all the hours. He had to go pick up 2 of the instructors and come back. And then we had an issue, I think, where someone thought they had a carbon monoxide leak into the. So then G had to get in 589 the next day with Ian and go pick him up
Yep.
from
Hey.
was it Yazoo or Hawkins?
Yazoo.
Hey, I've been in 589. I've been in the back of it flying back from Oshkosh, and that aircraft, ooh, she's a beauty.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah, that was the
it's
funniest
like
thing.
you're in a car in the back
Yes,
seat.
it
bet
is.
Stretch
Except
out.
the air vent. Oh my goodness, my whips are being so dried out by it. It's so powerful.
That's the only time I've heard someone complain about a strong AC in a
Yeah,
plane.
it dries you. It
But,
dries everything out.
You were talking about it being like a car. Colonel gave my parents a tour of the Cirrus when they were here for the career fair just to kind of hang out because I don't get to see them much. And my dad's like, man, it's like a Ferrari. I'm like, man, it's way nicer than a Ferrari. It's a $500,000 plane. It's got the nicest. Not many planes have air conditioners.
That was a big selling point. We were kind of like, haha, like we want to get something with air conditioner.
Especially
When that
in the
was for
Delta.
sure on the
Look.
table, it was like we got to make it happen.
Well, when we were at Oshkosh this year, they had a 10-year-old. I think they were from Columbus. The family was from Columbus or around that area. And so we couldn't really sell them on the out-of-state tuition, which was our biggest selling point.
Right.
But then Hayden had brought up the air conditioner, and the little girl's like, you got me. Shut up, shut up, you got me. Just let me look.
Yeah, that was for me when I was looking at flight schools. The out-of-state part wasn't, but seeing the facilities and then, the cost of training was, of course, that was big, especially when comparing to other schools.
Yeah.
And I guess, not that I think the program needs to be sold to its own students, I hope. But I do feel like we are now growing as a school beyond just the best bang for your buck school. That we're a lot
We're being
more. We're a lot
competitive.
more than just economical.
Yeah.
And we've always had the reputation in the industry of putting out great pilots. For people going into flight training, it was the cost. I think now those two are now getting to be what the industry sees and what the student sees. We all see it kind of, and I think that's further and further improving. You're getting a good cost, and then with these things like Cirrus's, you're getting a lot of stuff that really introduces
Quality.
you to where the industry's going.
Yes, sir.
And so, you're getting it all. You're getting the yoke, that half steering wheel, to the control stick of the diamond, to the side stick. So you're getting all the controls. You're getting the steam gauges. which I know some students can't stand them. Talking earlier about favorite plane, favorite tail number is definitely 99527. The P model, you know, a lot of people like the R model is better, but that's far and away my favorite. Not just because you can do spins in them.
What is it? Vomit Comet? Which one is that?
The Vomit Comet is 99527.
Okay.
But you start off in that and work your way up, and then by the end of it, you've just about, you know, got as much as you can.
Yes, sir.
So here soon, I'm sure we'll get that CRJ simulator, and we'll really
Yeah, I'm
get
hoping,
it all. So
hoping we have that before I get into that class in the spring.
So.
But anyway, I'm glad you could join us.
Of
Thank
course,
you.
this was a lot of fun. Thank y'all for having
I
me.
really appreciate you coming on. And hope to see you again.
Yeah, have me back anytime. Y'all might get done with this like we're never having him on again.
Maybe only stipulation, you might have to bring a
I might
drink
have to bring, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
I'm 22. Yeah. He's not, but
yeah.
you and I can have
Yeah,
one.
there we go. So, good deal, guys.
We'll have to do it off campus, though.
For sure.
But anyway, thank you guys for joining us, and hope you see you again next weekend. Bye.
Bye.